What's in your cup?
All out everything, ladies and gentlemen. I actually got a cup today. It's the Kickback Show, thekickbackshow.com. Welcome to the best thing that ever happened to your entire life. I go by the name of Faahz, and she is...
What's up, y'all? As always, it's your girl, Tiana Giovanna, and he is...
DJ Swivel, anything less unswivelize. And I can imagine that you've had that cup pretty much all week because your beloved Oakland/Las Vegas Raiders have a little bit of trouble on their hands.
Let me tell you something, okay?
Maybe that's no longer on their hands. I don't know.
Right. You know what's so wild is that this was part of the reason why I stopped watching to begin with.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just for context, I started watching football again because I figured y'all niggas don't care. Y'all meaning the people out there, right? People still watching. They still doing what they do. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, we've been doing this show for however long. And I got to a point, as we have always mentioned, at least for the past few months, that last year, like, it was just an uproar about, the George Floyd shit, just everything. And there was a part of me that came out, which was, I felt defeated, to be just quite frank. You know what I mean? And it was a combination of just things going on in personal life, but then also trying to do this work as it pertains to social justice, social reform, like all of that, trying to put things in motion and just kind of hitting at the end of the day, right? So I got to a point where I'm like, look, I was about to snitch on myself. I have ways of watching the NFL that that doesn't register with their metrics, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, yo, I don't buy any of their commercials. Like, none of that matters to me. You know what I'm saying? So allow people to be who they are. Let me grow and continue to explore spiritually, whatever. And then this happens, right? So clearly I stopped watching with the whole Kaepernick thing. And for me, what kept me from not watching for that long was like, yo, it's deeper than just Kaepernick taking a knee and protesting because of, you know what I'm saying, this police brutality and what we are experiencing. It was, yo, I don't believe that there's any type of empathy being shown from the league. Like, they don't care. You know what I mean? And now here we are. And it just so happened to be, God damn it.
just so happened to hit close to home for you because that's the team that you rooting for. And I mean, like, I grew up sort of rooting for the Raiders. My dad used to take me to Chargers games, so I started having like turmoil, or conflict, and trying to decide like which California team do I, side with. But I'm California as a whole. Like, I'm a Lakers fan at first, by anything, but I still root for the Clippers when the Clippers are on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
unless they're playing the Lakers.
No, but I feel you. I definitely feel you.
But like, and people used to look at me crazy, like, when I told them, like, I watch and support UCLA basketball, but I root for USC football. Like, they're like, well, how can you do two? Like, because I don't need to be tied to one team per se.
Especially when you ain't attended either school. Like,
what, is it really that serious? Like, come on, man. Like, it's
serious,
it's sports. I know some people just kind of take it overboard, but like, I think as a kid, I was always drawn to the silver and black for some strange reason. And
greatness. That's what it is, greatness.
Yeah. To see this happen to, a team that I, was rooting for the most part, is just like, ugh, this stings a little bit more than if it was some other team from another, state or whatever. So yeah, I can only imagine.
I'm not surprised. Like, I feel like because they were in a winning state, I don't want to cry for there being some sort of conspiracy, around the controversy at all. But it's also one of those things to where it reminded me of what was that dude's name? Donald Sterling. right?
Yeah,
The owner
yeah.
of the Clippers from years back, right? Where it was kind of like, here's this information that ultimately is considered confidential or private that got exposed to the public. Now, my question then becomes, how much of how much of this information that we've received is going to come out from other owners, from other coaches, and all of that other shit? You know what I mean? Like, is this just an isolated event, or is it kind of like, yo, we about to expose all of this shit because we know that it exists around the league, which
the NFL is like that last bastion of like sports racism, right? Like they're still very much like the good old boys club.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, the NBA has been like, I think, a shining example of what a sports organization should look like when it comes to like a lot of these issues. But like none of these like white owners, coaches, like really seem to be held accountable until like it's absolutely 100% irrefutable that they are like a 1000% bigot. And now, granted, do I think that someone should be fired over one isolated comment that they made out of anger 20 years ago? No. But when you show a pattern, then that is obviously a part of the larger issue, because you're now making like plans and plays and negotiations for people of color who fall under you. And like you have a direct impact on these people's lives day in and day out. And so when you are a part of a systemic issue, then you are the issue. And I think I'm sure, I have zero question about whether any of this has systemically been happening on a regular basis. Because here's my question. What about the people on the other end of those emails?
Well, that's the thing that
he wasn't emailing himself.
As soon as it was announced that he was resigning, like I immediately tweeted, like, I'm sure John Gruden ain't the only one, because like, and again, you know, a lot of the, I guess some of the more offensive emails were sent to a guy associated with the Washington football team, and so it's like, you know, yeah, John Gruden was sort of like, you know, forced to resign, so to speak. But like, what about the people that were on the receiving end? And supposedly, you know, it's 650,000 emails, like over between a 7 or 10 year span or something like that.
650,000?
Yes, and it's like
that like got the N word in them, the F word.
Well, no. Just I guess it was 650,000 emails that were involved in this investigation that was kind of prompted in something going on with the Washington football team. And so supposedly somebody from the NFL leaked this information or what have you, like, and leaked some of these emails.
Okay, so
and
that's a couple good ones.
That's how like was it New York Times or whoever got the story in the first place. But you know, it's like that many email correspondence over that long of a stretch of time. Like there's, you know, I'm sure there's dozens of people that are like have expressed similar views, and it's like, okay, when does the rug get pulled out from underneath those people?
Yeah, because it's an organization. Yeah. Like it's systemic, and there are many people involved. Like I said, you're not emailing yourself. Yeah. So how come no one spoke up years ago? Obviously, if you felt comfortable putting this in an email, it's pervasive.
I feel like it has been brought up, because the first thing that I saw pop up on my feed was Antonio Brown. You know, because he, you know, it came off as if he scammed the Raiders after he left the Steelers, got signed to the Raiders. Right. I don't even think he played. He didn't play one game. I think.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he played a preseason game. Did he? Yeah,
I don't think so.
And then he was gone. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, you know, I'm out playing for John Gruden, and he got the worst end of the, you know, bargain when it came to the public and you know, them kind of dragging his name in the mud. Now it almost kind of seems like, yo, he might have had a point back then, you know? And so I feel like there's a lot of, even Keyshawn person has come out and was like, this is who this guy is. Like, how are y'all not understanding that this is what exists within the league, right?
Yeah.
And part of it makes me even question whether or not it would have even come out to the public, or he even would have resigned if it hadn't been for this culture that we live in now, like the whole cancel culture and all this, you know what I'm saying? Like that whole thing. Like he probably would have been coaching the game that just happened. You know what I'm saying? Like he probably would have been out there, you know?
Well,
so
and there's
the shit is interesting.
You know, there was those memes going around saying, you know, like the word that got out that, you know, John Gruden made racist remarks regarding a black figure in the league, but he still coached, you know, the game that day. And it wasn't until, you know, the transgender stuff and the homophobic stuff and all that stuff came to light that, oh, now all of a sudden it's escalated. And, you know, but like you said, well, he didn't get fired. He resigned. But I'm sure, like, based on one of the interviews that I heard over the weekend with somebody who's really tied into the Las Vegas Raiders organization, they said, like, look, I've known Al Davis, is he the owner? I've known him and worked beside him for years. And if Davis had known anything about any of these emails, he never would have hired Gruden to begin with several years back, let alone give him that huge contract extension recently. So, you know, it's one of those, like, if Keyshawn is saying, like, this is who he is, okay, well, they tolerated, like, some of the racist stuff that came with John Gruden. But when it went to another level and you targeted another demographic of people, all of a sudden, that's the line that was, you know.
And
this is sounding mighty familiar. Maybe it was in a dream that I've had. I'm almost having like deja vu in a sense. It was like some guy that maybe it was a dream. It was like I was at a comedy show and this guy was on stage talking about, he made like reference to how racism kind of gets brushed over and it's okay. Or you can even like kill somebody and nothing really bad will happen to you. You know what I mean? Or you can, you know, I mean, granted, if a person, I guess in the dream, the person that killed somebody was acquitted because it was self-defense, but the joke was more or less like, you can get away with that and nothing bad will happen to your career, but they're not hurt a gay person's feelings because that'll do it.
Wait, no, I think I had that same dream.
It sounds very familiar to me too.
It really does. I think
had the dream too?
I think we should take a music break and think about it, because we like something weird is happening.
Yeah, because
clearly
that sounds awfully familiar to me too.
Yeah, let's try to figure this out, because it's, I wonder why all of us had the same dream. This is the Kickback Show, thekickbackshow.com. DJ Swill is in the mix. Snitch.
Yo. The Kickback Show. What's in your cup?
So, Kickback Show, thekickbackshow.com, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream that we had, and there was millions of other people that saw this thing too. It was Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle talked about.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and he talked about it just within the past couple of weeks on this special he had called The Closer. Ironic enough, it's.
That's where you can't make some of this stuff up. The irony in life is just, it's mwah. It really is.
Because literally what happened to John Gruden is exactly what freaking Dave Chappelle just got through talking about in that opening weekend of that special. Like, come on, man.
I believe something else happened too, like with Lil Boosie. Like it's literally happened, I think, like 2 or 3 times since The Closer came out, to where like, you can be racist, that's fine. You can kill people, you can talk about murdering and all of that, and you'll be good.
As long as the people that you're killing are of color.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's specify.
Then that's fine. Then
Yeah.
you're good. Here's the question that I have in all seriousness. Where did people see the transphobia within this latest special, right? Let's not account for the other 5 or 6 that he came out with, right? I'm trying to understand, and this is me coming from an ignorant standpoint, like, because initially I just want to say, yo, he didn't say anything, like, it was nothing offended. Why are you offended? You know, I don't want to be insensitive, but I'm also trying to understand, like, what specifically was a punchline that has the entire community in an uproar.
So,
because I know what I saw that garners me to be like, yo, you're missing the point. Because he also said X, Y, and Z. And then he went back and said, yo, go back and look. And I said A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So what exactly was it that is causing all this uproar?
So let me get on my nerd shit real quick. Studies have shown that people listen with the intention to react instead of the intention to understand, right?
Or to learn, maybe.
Well, just people listen with they plan on, I'm having a conversation with you, I'm listening to you so I know what to react to. Not because I'm trying to understand the point that you're making, but because I need to have a reaction. That's what people do naturally. And then, you know, couple that with the fact that we live in this time of everyone getting offended immediately, and cancel culture and the whole nine, like, we all know what that's about. And I think that's the issue, is that people listened and are so ready. They're on the defensive. They're ready to be offended. They're waiting for you to say something offensive, or something that they can construe as offensive, so that they can turn that into an issue, so that they can react to what you said, instead of really sitting back and being like, oh shit, he has a point, right? And I think that one of the things that the LGBTQ community has an issue with, and I can, from this perspective, I can understand what they're saying, is he boils down gender to its most simple form. Either you have a vagina or you have a penis, and that's all. Like, there's no way around it. There's nothing more to it. And that's something that the community has been trying to get people to understand, that it is not that black and white, right? And so listening, because, you know, I do chair the Diversity and Inclusion Council at my company, right? And so being aware of this stuff and understanding it is part of my job. And so from that perspective, I completely understand that you have a whole group of people who are like, no, it's not that simple. You're making us a monolith, and you're boiling it down to the most simple possible answer. And it's so much more nuanced than that. So in that regard, I could see where they would be offended. But beyond that, the entire point of what he's saying is being missed. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think that he did such a fantastic job at the end of really, like, bringing it all the way full circle and saying, like, in order for me to punch down on you, I have to look down on you. And I don't. In fact, earlier in the special, he says, not only do I not look down on you, I'm jealous of you, because you have made strides that the Black community has not been able to make in decades.
In a fraction of the time.
Exactly. And I think that therein lies the issue, is that people are ready to be offended. They're ready to jump on the defense. They're ready to cancel someone. And all they want to do is listen to react instead of actually understanding the point.
And, you know, you go into a comedy show, like, expecting, you know, a comic to say some outlandish things or whatever. So, like, when you look at it from that perspective, like, going into, you know, if there's people out there that are going into see Chappelle or any comedian for that matter, like, okay, I'm waiting for him to say something outlandish against my community so that I can have that that reaction instead of just going to like, let me just go enjoy the show, have a few laughs, hopefully maybe gain some knowledge or whatever. And for me, I almost felt like with what Dave did was rather masterful when you look at it from the perspective. I felt like he kind of knew when he signed on to do these specials with Netflix, like how he was gonna like go from start to finish with all 5 or 6 specials, whatever it ends up being, and knew that like, all right, I'm gonna take everybody on this whole journey of enlightenment, if you will. and then like Tiana said, came back on the closer and brought everything back full circle. But like, look, like you pointed out, Faahz, like, this is what I said. Go back and check my specials. This is what I said. This is how people interpreted it, but this is what I said. And now, and even in the beginning of the closer, early on, he's like, I'm going all the way in, kind of sort of preempting the crowd and the viewing audience. Like, look, I know where this is going, and you gonna find out once we get there and I unravel it all. But like, just it's, to me, like, it was great in terms of how he did put everything together. And I was seeing all the backlash against him and the show before we got this chance to sit down and watch the special. And so like, I think it made it that much easier for me to be like, okay, I see the whole point he was trying to make and how people missed it. You know what I mean? It's just, I feel so bad. Or just quickly, I feel bad for the people that missed it and just didn't take the time to really process everything he was breaking down. But
therein lies the problem, I think, because people are so quick to be like, what about me? What about my community? What about, and a lot of people who were complaining about this missed what he was saying about what's happening in the Black community.
Exactly.
So not only are you offended by what he said,
and how it relates to the LGBTQ.
Exactly. So not only are you offended unnecessarily by what he said, not only did you miss the point, but you completely missed what he's saying about the two communities, how they compare, what he's saying about the Black community in general. And it's like, what did you watch? Why did you watch? Why did you even watch?
And I'll to add to that, and then I'll throw it back to you, Faahz. For me, it was also on some let's look at it from just a humanity standpoint.
That part.
You know what I'm saying? When he was talking about Daphne. He made the comment that how at the show she screamed out I just want you to understand that I'm a person and I'm going through shit.
Yeah, I'm having a human experience.
I'm having a human experience. And for me, that's how I've always viewed a lot of the social injustice and all that kind of stuff is where's the humanity? And I've tweeted this out on Facebook, whatever, where's the humanity when we're looking at some of these things that have transpired? And I felt like that's what Dave was trying to point out was she came at me in terms of just look at me as a human being, forget the gender color line, if you will, or gender line, whatever.
Both. Yeah.
And that's what he realized in that moment and was it's more than just, if people think I have a phobia towards this community,
Yeah.
And I think I agree with everything you said, both of you. And I got the same thing. So I'm like, bro, I don't understand how, well, I do understand how, because I've had these conversations as well with people that align themselves or are allies with the LGBTQ plus community. And I remember years ago, a coworker of mine saying John, you should understand. And it was pretty much around the time when they were trying to legalize or fighting for the right to be married, for same-sex marriage, right? So the comment that was made to me was, you should understand, being Black, because it's a civil rights issue. And My response, and this is, I was still kind of deep into, religion with Christianity and everything, right? But still had like an honest response of, you have to understand that majority of the Black community, one, has grown up in some sort of spiritual household or religious household that's very strict. Plus you have other, how do I say this? You have other elements that coincide with that narrative that more or less say that homosexuality was forced upon certain aspects of our community, whether it be the buck breaking or whatever the case may be. So you have like people that understand that this was never really a part of it was never a part of us being Black, right? Like that's almost kind of like the argument that can be made, right? Out of pure ignorance on top of that, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, it was never a part of our culture. Like, we believed in something else. When you go back and look at our art and look at other shit that we come from, right? And then my response to her was like, like, you can't compare this to a civil rights issue, because people that are gay or homosexual, whatever the case may be, if you're a part of that community, you aren't being forced to drink from another water fountain. You weren't forced to use another restroom. You weren't forced to go to a different school. You aren't being segregated. You aren't being water hosed down during your protest. Those things aren't happening to you. It's an unfair comparison, but I understand where you're coming from. I get what you're trying to say, but you can't compare the two. When simultaneously, you fast forward to where we are, and what I got from Dave is, you're trying to make these comparisons when there aren't any, but then simultaneously you are able to go back into your comfort zone the same way that white people are when they are faced with danger or any type of adversity. So whenever something happens, and this isn't anything to take away from what happens to this community, because there are very tragic things, but then at the same token, where's that same fervor when the shit is happening over here?
Right.
Like, if you really care that much about what it is that I'm saying, stand with me. But people are silent, but then want to make this outcry when I say one little simple thing about you, you feel like you're the butt of a joke. When it's my obligation as a comedian to stir shit up and talk shit.
Yeah. Like, could you?
This is my job. So you're ultimately telling me that I can't do a certain part of my job when essentially you're not even, you don't really care. You don't give a fuck. So why should I? That's kind of what I took from that. It's like, let's get on the same page if you want to be on the same page. If you want to be able to use your power to be able to change something in society, help me change this shit over here.
Yeah.
And why not join, like you said, why not join forces? And what you just said, like, it made me think, like, it reminds me of, like, when the Black Lives Matter movement, like, really kind of got started, all of a sudden there was this, like, well, all lives matter started. But then when white people were getting shot and killed by the police or whatever, like, you didn't see all lives matter at the, protesting outside of that police department. You saw Black Lives Matter people protesting. Like, it's convenient and cool when you want it and when you need it. But,
well, but the All Lives Matter movement was very much created specifically and only to combat the idea of Black Lives Matter.
I get it, but I'm just saying, like, there's certain movements where they don't necessarily put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they
for sure,
they talk a big game, but like Faahz was saying, like, hey, I'm having these struggles, you having your struggles. Why are we not, like, fighting these similar struggles together as one?
A rising tide lifts all boats to some degree, and
bars.
And unfortunately, the boat of the Black community hasn't been lifted nearly as much or as quickly as it should. But at the same time, I think that even within the gay community, those people who are outraged, like, I want to know who in that community is outraged. What color are you? How do you identify? Are you a queer white woman? Are you a, you know, trans Black man? Huge difference. Huge difference. And I'm not saying that either of those people do or do not have a right to be outraged, because, you know, you're going to feel how you feel. But at the same time, I want to know who the outcry is coming from. And then I also want to know, where are you in regard to like Black Lives Matter? Where are you in regard to civil rights for everyone? Where do you stand when it comes to, you know, police violence disproportionately affecting Black and brown communities? Where are you when it comes to the fact that 46% of people in jails are Black and brown when we make up a significant minority in this country? Like, where are you on that?
Yeah.
Because that makes a difference too. And there was Flame Monroe, who is a Black trans comedian, was on CNN and had a great conversation on there about cancel culture and about how, like, he defended what Dave Chappelle said. And that's the thing is that it comes back to the artistry, it comes back to storytelling, it comes back to considering the source. And I think that that's a big part of what was missed also by those people who were enraged by Dave Chappelle, is consider the source, consider his experience, in addition to, you know, the story that he's telling, you know? And
back to Faahz's point, like, you know, Chappelle, in a sense, was just like, I'm just saying something thought-provoking to get you guys to think outside of the norm, that and to get conversations going so that we can eventually start to move towards change if enough people are talking about it.
Mm-hmm. For everybody.
But and that's, you know, and you know, when he was commenting about himself being the GOAT, I think that's because so many people view him as in his more recent specials as really getting thought-provoking conversations going from a comedic standpoint. You know, getting people to laugh and
just being funny. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, he's never, and that's the thing, like, yeah, he's had those moments where he's funny, but that's what I appreciate, and I think why he has the ability to rank himself as a GOAT, because he does. He's always been a storyteller first, and then the punchlines are in there, but he makes you think. But gosh, could you imagine if George Carlin or like a Red Fox or like we're practicing comedy now?
Well, that's the thing. George Carlin was saying some of this very same outlandish stuff back in the 80s or early 90s.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, could you imagine them, like?
Oh yeah,
now?
They'll dig up old footage and try to cancel him, even in you know, even in the afterlife.
But you know, we count these people among the greats. You know, Paul Mooney. I feel like Paul Mooney was absolutely one of the greats, but I feel like he didn't reach the commercial success that he deserved.
Yeah.
Because he was controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like all of these people canceled left and right. Where would the comedy game be if we had canceled all of them?
Yeah.
Where would the comedy game be? I mean, did they try to cancel Richard Pryor?
I feel like both Richard Pryor and Paul Mooney kind of, you know, they were in that era where, like, you know,
they canceled them. They tried to.
They didn't cancel them. They put a cap so they couldn't excel to this higher level of stature. Could
you imagine delirious Eddie Murphy right now?
But I mean, it's one of those things that makes you look at a larger narrative of, you know, they try to, you know, maybe this is unfair to compare it, but when you try to devalue somebody's character, right? So when it comes to Paul Mooney and Richard Pryor, they had the Richard Pryor sketch show that only went, like 3 episodes in that season before they exited out. You know what I'm saying? And then it was just countless amount of times to where you started to see his decline, but it stemmed from what type of comedian was he? He was pro-Black, he was unfiltered, and he was everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Red Fox. You saw the decline in his career, but it was like, look what he was doing with his TV show. Look what he was doing on stage. Look what he was doing in his acting. You know what I mean? Clearly can't really say the same about Eddie Murphy, but then also Eddie Murphy didn't really punch you in the gut the same way that Paul Mooney, Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle.
He wasn't as thought-provoking. He was a punchline guy for sure.
We throw Dick Gregory in that.
Dick Gregory.
Too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, in terms of popularity and all that kind of stuff, like, you know, he wasn't as popular as maybe he should have been because he was, you know, going
you can't be too pro-black and popular.
Yeah, you can't go against the political grain or whatever. And
but you know,
it's
like that.
It's the Muhammad Ali effect.
Yeah, exactly. But and my thing is, you know, again, going back to how well Dave tells a story and is thought-provoking, you know, and the reason that George Carlin and like Paul Mooney popped in my head is because they did the same thing. They were very much storytellers who happened to have great punchlines versus just someone who like knocked you out with like funny haha, right? Because it was all political commentary. It was all about like what was happening in the times. And it's like, you know, we've gotten to this point where it's like you can't say anything about anybody and have an honest, open conversation if it is even slightly, I don't want to say offensive, but if it's slightly...
You have to be politically correct with everything.
Well, even if it has a tinge of conflict is kind of where I'm going. It can't have any conflict.
But the thing is that I get from, as you brought up George Carlin, because the limited amount of comedy that I've experienced from him, I see the same in Dave Chappelle, to where, for me, Chappelle doesn't have a type of
not at all.
It's very much like, here's this thought.
Yeah.
Why isn't this thought looked at this way? And it makes you go, oh shit, that's funny, because I never thought of it that way.
And those are my favorite kind of comedians.
Like, and going back to the whole baby stuff, it was just like, you know, the baby did this, nothing happened to him. You see where I'm going with this? And the crowd goes into a frenzy because it's like, I see what you're doing here. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then you go back and you listen to him say, my problem has never been with this community, it's been with white people. Because you're claiming that you have this feminist movement. Well, I'm showing you, this is how you can be effective with this. I agree with you and you're attacking me when really I'm on your side, but you're not even on the side of everybody within your own community.
Yeah, exactly.
With you, LGBTQ, you're not even on the same side as everybody in your community that's being attacked. That's being, you know what I mean? That's like, so what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? Which we even talked about this shit on this show when we you know, the whole all Black Lives Matter. It's like, how is this a thing when you're undermining everything that has been illustrated? You know what I'm saying? When it's more than just a movement. Like, if you strip away all the politics from it, how do you have a problem with somebody saying Black Lives Matter? We matter. I matter. How do you have a problem with that statement?
Black Lives Matter. It's so antithetical.
And then all of a sudden now it's like, well, here's this thing that's happening over here that we're going to isolate to basically say, hey, you're not paying attention to what's happening to the LGBTQ. So we're going to say all Black Lives Matter because somehow they're not being recognized with saying Black Lives Matter. I immediately kind of went there when all of this started to, you know, come up, because I'm like, well, this doesn't make any sense of how you're trying to isolate and push away the blackness in this shit.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, because
like,
at the end of the day, and this is just the reality of it, at the end of the day, most white people who are within the queer community can hide their queerness. Most of them. Black people cannot hide being Black.
Except maybe over the phone.
I mean, yeah, unless you're a hell of a code switcher. Like, you can't hide that. And I think that that's one of the reasons why, you know, you talked earlier, Faahz, about how like y'all have never had dogs, you know, turned on you in protest. Y'all have never been sprayed with hoses. Well, guess what? A big reason for that is because a lot of you are white.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not good optics.
Y'all haven't even been marginalized when it comes to getting a job because your name on the application doesn't fit the bill.
Yeah.
Laquan Jackson is definitely being looked over versus a Brad Stevens. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's clearly, and I mean, again, like at the end of the day, we all are saying the same thing. We all want equality. We want to be considered humans. We want to be heard. And this, I'm clearly mentioning everything that Chappelle said.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like, yo, just stop and listen for a minute.
Yeah.
Stop and pay attention. Just stop and try to understand the other side of the coin. You know what I'm saying? We understand that there's shit happening, but let's stay consistent.
Keep that
That's
same
the
energy.
universal law.
Yeah, exactly.
And not only that, like at the end of the day, no one is saying that either community does not deserve to live authentically, does not deserve equal rights, does not deserve to be heard and seen and completely visible. And so like, why, like when I see shit like this, I'm like, why is this even an issue? Like, no one is saying that you don't deserve X, Y, and Z. No one is saying that we deserve it more than you. Like, there's room for everybody to rise together.
It's become so, everything has just become so marginalized, and it's, you know, we live in such a divisive society, especially here in the States. And it's like, can we just look at things from a freaking human perspective? Yeah. Are you human? Okay, cool. I don't care what gender you are or what color you are. Like, what's best for humanity? Let's start there.
Listen, I'm finna do my high yellow, mixed race, cisgendered female self to Ghana and call it a freaking day.
God body. One last thing, and rest in peace to Daphne, because it is very tragic what happened. And I think that it's noteworthy to say that there was an article that I read to try to search for, in preparation for this conversation we're having, to try to find exactly what it is that I may be missing that is, again, causing the outcry, right? And one of the things that I find ironic, which Dave speaks to, is the fact that he gets all of this backlash. And in the article, they mentioned that some of the jokes are insensitive because somebody out there that may be listening may turn and think it's okay to harm or injure somebody that's a part of the community that he's quote unquote making light of, right? So it's like, you know, artists need to be sensitive in making jokes about, you know, murder, because there's somebody that may interpret that as, oh, it's okay for me to go out here and hurt somebody, right? So it's like, okay, I understand and get that. Simultaneously, though, you had somebody that was embraced by Dave Chappelle, not only as being a trans individual, but was also a comedian that he saw and was like, look, I'm going to give you an opportunity. We had a moment. Here's this, you know, I mention you, and boom, like, here's the birth of your career from somebody that clearly has more to learn about this community. I'm giving you a shot where I don't even know what your own community has done for you, but that doesn't matter. I'm doing this. Yeah, to then in turn have this individual stand up for you as a free speaker, as having a freedom of speech, stands by you to say, hey, he isn't what you think he is. Yeah. He's on our side. For then this individual to then get backlash from the same community to then turn and take their own life. It's like, how do you not see that out of everything else? How do you not see that? That clearly the very thing that you are giving me hell about, you're doing yourself. Mm-hmm. And then in turn, you're doing it even more so when it comes to what I can't hide as a Black man. That's the aha.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I almost feel
that's that funny and not funny.
I almost feel like, you know, anyone who took offense to what Chappelle was saying turned the special off before he even got to the final tie everything together with a nice
Niggas didn't want to hear it. No, I refuse to believe. I believe that niggas didn't want to hear this shit.
Right.
Like, you have to watch the full shit, but like, it's like you didn't want to hear you didn't want to get a taste of your own medicine. You didn't want the finger to be pointed at you like, hey,
clutching your pearls.
Right. Like, you didn't want to hear the accountability. You only wanted to hear, wait, what's offensive that I can go tweet about to try to get him knocked down because he's bringing up too much of the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's making me be responsible for what I'm doing. How can I find something different? Oh, let's talk about this part. Because this is the part that matters, not the part where he's like, go back and listen to what I'm saying.
I'd be hella curious to see if the community has done anything for Daphne's daughter. You know, like how Chappelle said he set up a trust fund. Like, what has that community done for? Because I'm sure it's little to nothing. I wouldn't be surprised. Let me switch it up. I wouldn't be surprised if it's little to nothing.
Clearly, it's a safe assumption. And I feel the same way. But again, it's out of ignorance. But a lot of that can be said about a lot of different movements, and we're not immune to that either. The Black community is not immune to that. There's a lot of things that end up happening. It's like, well, what has happened? You know what I mean? It speaks to a larger narrative. So I stand by you with that. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, it's what we always talk about on this show. It's what we always end with like, look, formulate your own opinion, do your own research, understand and listen to what we're saying, and not just take it at face value. Find out different ways that this applies to you, and then how you can make the universe that you create better. You know what I'm saying? Also, shout out to my sister, who's also part of the LGBTQ community. My sister Adrian, you know what I'm saying? Much love to you, baby girl. I love you. I stand by you. All that good shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of shit that we talk on this show, but when it comes to real ass issues and questioning certain things, this is why this platform exists. You know what I'm saying? So anybody that has any type of insight, if you have an opinion, please get at us, holler at us at the Kickback Show on all of your social media devices. Anything else you have?
Well, yeah, just to piggyback off of what you always say, as far as like, you know, encouraging people to do their own research. Like, you know, we have our knowledge and our opinions or what have you here on this show, but at the same time, we're also not egotistical or whatever and think we know everything, and we're open to, you know, people coming at us with more like insight, different perspectives and all that kind of stuff, because that just helps us, like, you know, grow in our wisdom and knowledge and all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, like, you know, we've hit the nail on the head with I don't know how many topics throughout doing this show, but at the same time, like, you know, we know there's still more information out there that we're not privy to. So, you know, put us up on game. We're open-minded. We're not freaking we're not stuck up individuals.
Not at all.
So
not at all, man. And definitely not above any kind of, you know, correction. You know what I'm saying? So, and take it in, you know, I take it in stride. You know what I mean? And again, I know that I talk a lot of trash, and a lot of my opinions are based on my own personal experience, which, you know, has been confined to a limited amount of thinking over the years. And it's just recently that I've started to kind of open up more to universal laws and all of that. You know what I'm saying? And getting down to what the absolute truth is that can't be debated, you know, and looking at consistencies. And so I think, you know, that's the number one thing. It's like, let's keep the same energy. Let's be consistent with what it is that we stand on and what we talk about. If you're going to be outraged about something that's happening over here, keep that same energy when the shit happens over here.
Exactly.
It's balance. It's polarity. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all of those things. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I get it. There's so many more nuances that come to, you know, when it comes to everything that we dealing with, whether it be identity, gender, and all of that kind of shit. But then there's some things that's just like, yo, like, can't argue that. You know. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of, or installment rather, of Kickback University. So,
I'll stay woke.
Hope you had your pen and paper handy and put to good use. If not, just run the episode back and do it again.
That's it. You know what I'm saying? Stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. You hear me?
There it is. That part.
In the poet of philosopher's words, sugar free. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Look, man, it's always love. You know what I mean? Don't expect you once again to agree with everything, but hopefully you are enlightened and have a different perspective. You know what I mean? And again, we're always open to whatever it is that your perspective and your ideas are, because that's why we're here. You know what I mean? Not just for us, but for everybody that's around, everybody that's listening, and those that are next to us. So, continue to show love, continue to find that inner peace. And until next time, again, this is the Kickback Show, at the Kickback Show on everything. I go by the name of Faahz. You can find me at WaveCapJohnny on all your social media devices. And he is
DJ Swivel on Twitter, Swivel on Instagram, SWIVLL, and shout out to Tiana Giovanna. She had to step out, but Tiana Giovanna on all her social media devices.
And shout out to Organic Blackberry. You can holler at her at the Kickback Show. All that good stuff and thing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Till next time, love, peace, and harmony.
Deuces.